Standing room only. We should have charged more for tickets. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you very much. Kendra Young has some opening comments.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys so much for coming out. We are so thrilled with the response and that you guys have taken time on a beautiful Sunday afternoon to come and talk to us about something that is very near and dear to our hearts. We have 3 ways for you guys to interact with us today. The first, if you have a smartphone with you, you can go to slido.com, that is SLIDO.com. And if you will put in the link to join is hashtag, or for those of Has everyone been able to get in so far? Because I'm not showing active users up here yet. We're hoping this works. You in? Okay, no, questions are popping up. Here we go. We're working. Hopefully everybody's in. Also in your chairs, you will find a green and red card. And so if you hear statements that you strongly agree with or strongly disagree with, you can use those to interact with us as well. Mr. Carroll may also poll the audience and ask you to hold back your questions. We're going to go ahead and jump into it. Some elected officials are still traveling back from an out-of-town conference. We checked for everything except out-of-town conferences. We checked for football games. We checked for movie releases. We checked for everything when selecting the date. We did not check for out-of-town conferences. So they are traveling back, but they have been in contact with us. They will be here shortly, probably within the next 10 minutes. But we're going to go ahead and get started. They can jump in when they get here. The event is being streamed live on Facebook through the Hamilton County United webpage or the Facebook page. So if you have friends or family that you know wanted to be here and could not make it, you are welcome to take a moment, text them right quick, tell them to go to the Hamilton County United Facebook page, and they can follow along from there. It is being video streamed live right now. So once again, thank you for coming out on your weekend, especially on such a beautiful day. We're going to discuss some hard topics that are facing our community today. It's going to be uncomfortable at times because hard topics are always uncomfortable. I teach my students that we call that disequilibrium. It's kind of like you can imagine standing on an exercise ball on a skateboard. You kind of feel like you don't know which way you're going. But that is always a sign of an opportunity for growth and for development and for learning. And so instead of running from that feeling, which is our natural human instinct, we need to embrace it and say, okay, where are we going with this disequilibrium? So I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone in this room for being willing to experience that disequilibrium with us today so that we can move forward. I do want to acknowledge the elected officials that are here and present already. If you guys would please stand for just a moment. They have also taken time out of their day to be here, and as I said, more on their way. If you could just show your appreciation for them for just a moment, I would appreciate that. So I've already went over some of this, but in true teacher fashion, we've organized this event in a way that maximizes interaction but minimizes distractions. So this is where your green cards come into effect. If you are a teacher in this room, if you are a Hamilton County educator or staff member, would you please hold up your green card? Whoa. Retired counts. If you are a Hamilton County resident, please raise your hand or hold up your green card. Nice. Nice. If you are a registered voter, please raise your green cards. Oh, I love that. So, duly noted, we have a room full of registered voters. If by chance someone is sitting beside you and they did not raise their hand or their green card, they are not a registered voter, you now have homework. Your homework is to take that person who is sitting next to you that is not a registered voter and go with them to register to vote. Okay? I do want to thank the team that has made this possible. I am not a person, I'm not a one-woman army by any stretch of the imagination. If I could get these people to stand, that would be Heather Modrow, Carrie Bishop, Andrea Weaver, John DeVore, and Lauren Brock. Could we please give them a big round of applause? Lauren Brock was unable to be with us here today. She has had a very sudden, very unexpected death in her immediate family. And so she is with her family at this time. So our thoughts and our prayers are with her right now. We would also like to, I'm not sure if he's even here today, but he's taken a lot of time. Mr. Cliff Lean, he is a social studies and history teacher at Signal Mountain. And he has not been able to attend meetings with us because of a grueling teaching and soccer coaching schedule this year. But a lot of the research that we have done into different Tennessee code and historical documents and things like that has been spearheaded by Mr. Cliff Lean. And finally, this is the big one. If you are a family member of a Tennessee educator or staff member, would you please stand? I know there's some in here. If you are a family member, stand up. Stand up. And my husband is back there in the back somewhere. I just saw him and he just disappeared. Can we please give them a big round of applause? Teaching is not one of those careers that just involves the individual educator. It is a family affair. They will tell you they spend their lives going to school, coming back from school, and at events like this, working. So thank you so much. The team has began to refer to my husband as the saint, and I don't deny that for a second. Please give a big round of applause. You have a document in your lap, this right here. We started collecting data at the beginning of the school year on the amounts of money that was collected and the amount of uncompensated hours that your Hamilton County teachers are working. And we had a wonderful data analyst step forward. She is a parent of a child at Normal Park, and she recognizes it herself, and she stepped forward and gave us a huge value. She volunteered to crunch those numbers for us. If you could give her a big hand. I would appreciate that. So we have been asked a lot of times exactly what we think we're going to accomplish today. What do you think you're going to accomplish with a town hall full of, teachers and community members and elected officials? And what we hope to accomplish today can actually be summed up in 3 short statements. 1, we are asking for acknowledgement that the current funding level for Hamilton County schools is both insufficient and unsustainable. If you take a look at that $2.5 million number on that sheet that I just referenced, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. We're going to go into more detail on that data later, but this is where we have to be very clear. We as teachers and our families cannot continue to carry the school district on our backs. To ask us to do so is both unethical and immoral. If teachers stopped working for free and spending their own money, education as you know it in this county would screech to a halt. This is not an exaggeration. It is a fact. And we need everyone to acknowledge this so that we can move forward. The second thing that we hope to accomplish today is asking that our school district, school board, and elected officials and community offer real solutions to this problem. Finger pointing, blaming, and deflecting are not solutions. It takes courage to admit that these problems are real. They're overwhelming, and we understand how insurmountable this task seems. That's why it's going to take true heroes to solve them. We're calling on all stakeholders to be the courageous heroes that our schools and our teachers need right now. Third, we are asking our school district, school board, elected officials, and community to acting on the solutions that are offered. Offering solutions without acting on them is merely lip service. We are not interested in lip service anymore. We ask that all sides commit to actions today, specific actions, including deadlines for completion, so that everyone can be held accountable moving forward, because that's why we're all here today, to figure out how we move forward. And with that, I ask you to welcome our moderator, Mr. David Carroll of WRCB Channel 3 News.
Hey, everybody. what I'm going to do is make my opening remarks brief. Thank you all for coming. Now we get to the questions. And we have, as you see, a county mayor, we have 2 county commissioners, we have 3 school board members, and I understand more may be on the way. So I do have a tablet with your questions, and what I'm going to ask, since this is a crowded room, some of you are seated, I'm going to ask our elected officials, when you do respond to a question, to please stand so everybody can see you. And the first question I see on the screen is actually the top 2 is pretty much the same question. And that is, how can we retain teachers with such low pay in comparison to nearby counties, followed by how do you expect our school system to improve when neighboring counties pay teachers more money? Who would like to tackle that one first? Okay.
Well, thank you, David. I want to begin this way, and I'm not going to give an opening comment either, but I want to say, and every time in any of these schools, I always say this, so many of you have heard me say it, but I want to say to every teacher in this room, and every teacher that serves in Hamilton County, thank you. Sincerely, thank you for what you do every day. I mean, it's a tough job. Many of us recognize that, and I don't want you to think it goes unnoticed, and so I just want to set the tone from my perspective anyway to say to you, thank you. It's really important what you do. It's important to our future, and I don't think there's anything more important as it relates to the workforce or our economy or anything than what you're doing in the classroom. So thank you if you're a teacher. So what was your question, David?
How are we going to keep good teachers?
Well, yeah. And here's the thing, that was a lot of the topic that started back in actually before January. It just kind of became public, I guess, in May, and I know this is something that I've seen many of the executives from the school system that are here, and certainly the school board is more equipped to answer this question. But it is a concern, and I came here today to listen and to learn, not to talk. And so I'm going to try to uphold what I came here for. But I want you to know and understand that is exactly part of what we were trying to discuss. As it related to teachers' pay, and to try to be comparable and to be a little bit better than what our neighboring communities currently are, because we thought that it's important not only for retention but also for recruitment, but also it's important to be able for students to come in. I grew up in our public school system, and very rarely were there any teacher changes in the schools where I grew up. I tell people all the time, I'm old enough, it was elementary school, junior high school, which was 7 through 9, and then high school. And I had the same principal all 6 years in my elementary school, all 3 years in my junior high, and in my high school. And the same thing as it related to my teachers. You could go back and the same teachers are there. And I think that gave me a discernible advantage growing up. You get to know everybody and so forth. So it's really important, I think, that we're able to retain our teachers, and I think it's very important that we're able to recruit them. And in order to do that, I think we got to take a hard look at salaries, and we did that from where I sit with the Department of Education. Brent Goldberg, you'll hear me refer to him many times, sitting down and seeing and working with the administration to see what we could do going forward. What they thought was fair compensation, how we could do it. But I also want to say, and this last time I'll mention this, is that there were a number of other issues that we were trying to address at the same time. And a lot of times, I know the teachers are getting the brunt of a lot of this, saying that it was all about just teachers. No, it wasn't all about just teachers, ladies and gentlemen. It was about trying to make the entire system, something that we thought could move education forward, public education, because as you know, about 30% of our students are now going into private schools. And from where I sit, and when we're recruiting businesses here, one of the main things that companies want to know is where they're going to get that workforce, and they're looking at you as a public school system. So retention is important and recruitment is important. I don't have the solution. We work towards that in this last budget year, but I'm not going to stand before you and tell you I have the solution. So I'm really interested in hearing what the people here today say.
Any of y'all want to take this? Okay, Kathy. And by the way, we have our time limit people back there, right? Pardon me? Okay. We'd like to ask everybody to keep your answers to a couple minutes so we can get a lot of questions in.
Well, that feedback from the machine, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's very irritating. I'm hearing it. I don't know.
Yes, I hear it.
Everybody else hearing it? Yeah, it's annoying. I don't know what it is.
Probably because some people have.
What?
It's the building.
It's probably because some
It's the
people.
building.
If I have to speak.
It's the
When
building.
that sound is not feedback, that's system.
Oh, it's a system.
I don't know what the solution is, but I do think all teachers, we do need to have better compensation for our teachers so that we can recruit them and retain them in Hamilton County. We've had good recommendations actually from David Sharp, our commissioner right here. It's been presented by county commission, but it's been rejected. It hasn't passed. Over and over again, we keep having solutions, but they don't go through. I don't know what is going to be the final outcome, but I think that the people need to be able to vote on it, and that's what I would like to see happen. I would like the people of Hamilton County to be able to bring it, have that discussion around the table, which I think that was a great discussion that David Sharp had at a county commission meeting that I went to. Thank you, David Sharp. Thank you, Catherine Jeter, for bringing that up, the wheel tax. He even brought up at one point before when the one tax increase wasn't, David, and you have to help me out here.
Are you talking about the 34 cents?
Yes.
Right, so there was a proposal, after that 34 cent failed, there was a proposal to reduce that number to provide a 5% pay raise for Department of Education employees. That amendment also failed, where then a second amendment was attempted to be made to decrease that number to 2.5%, and that was to come from the property taxes, just as the original proposed budget, but yet that amendment also failed.
Okay, and again, that's because some of our commissioners are saying that you all do not want to have a tax increase, which I don't think that's correct, because I think that if the people of Hamilton County were to vote on it, they would want you all to have a raise, correct? And I think that if we take it to the people, that the people are gonna want it, the people are gonna say, let's give our teachers a raise, because it's important. Education is important in Hamilton County, and we want what's best for our students. So until we do that, I don't think anything's gonna happen. We're gonna have to be able to give the people a voice. Let our people have a voice in Hamilton County.
Next question. Next question is, how often does everyone tour the schools? Curious to know how familiar you are with the current state of our schools. Who would like to tackle that? Would you please? Commissioner Jeter?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Awesome. First off, just want to say thank you for this opportunity to be before you. And I'm going to kind of just quickly make a comment off of the first question. I think I don't begin to say that I have all the answers to the solutions to that first question, but just coming here today and sitting in this room full of all these bodies, I think part of the solution is this, right? I think that having every voice, and especially the voices of the folks that are every day working in our schools, that are seeing the issues, that are teaching our kids, and that are working in the environments that we have to vote on or make decisions on, those voices are the ones that have to be elevated, not necessarily our voices. And I think that's pretty much sometimes what we're hearing is our voices. This is part of the solution. So I'm really happy and excited that we're having this today and that I get to be a part of it. To the second question about how often are we touring schools, personally for me, I think that's really important. I think in order for us to be elected officials, to make these governing decisions, we got to see the truth. We've got to see the realities that you guys are seeing. And that's going beyond just coming in and touring the school, right? That's something that you can easily do. But it's making those relationships, making those connections with the teachers in our schools, as well as those administrators. But I'll take it a little step past that. I mean, I've said this before in our commission meetings. We each represent a district, but at the end of the day, I'm a Hamilton County Commissioner. David is a Hamilton County Commissioner. We have to get past our district lines if we really are going to solve the challenges and the issues that are facing what you see every day and what our kids are facing.
Stand close to the mic. Yeah, want to echo everybody. Thank you for, I'll get closer to the wall in the corner. I want to thank y'all for having this tonight. As I'm in schools every week, it seems like. I've got my star music teacher at East Ridge right here, some CSLA teachers, East Brainerd teachers here. And that's something that's very important to me is to connect with my teachers. I'm now being told to go this way. Just to connect with my teachers, get to talk to them, talk to my principals, get to know them. Me and Kathy have talked over the last 2 weeks about going after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, and touring every single school. Not really for this issue, but really for our facilities issue. I chair the facilities chair for the board, and I don't think we can grasp the full report without seeing every single school possible. So I know for me, not just being into the schools, but making sure that I'm accessible on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything possible. I think it's my job, and I think an elected official's job is to kind of come to y'all instead of y'all come to us, so y'all can be heard. So I try to be in the schools as much as possible.
Okay, I'm not going to ignore the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We've heard the back and forth that some commissioners say it's the school board's decision on paying teachers and applying the raises from the budget that exists, and some school board members criticize commissioners for not allotting enough money. So let's go ahead and tackle that one. The reason a lot of these people are here today is because they're angry. And whose fault is this? Ultimately, why are these people not happy with the state of the way things are going right now? Whose fault is it? Who'd like to take a shot at that? Both sides blame the other.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jenny Hill, and I have the honor of representing the people of District 6 on the school board, and I represent every child in Hamilton County on the school board like my colleagues do. We here in this room, I think for the most part, are preaching to the choir as we talk to one another. I think that overall, the people who have chosen to come here today have a shared appreciation and value for public education and strong public education. If possible today, I think it would be really useful if we could elevate our conversation to the conversation about solutions. Less about rehashing how our last budget cycle went down, but more about what's next for Hamilton County. What do we as citizens want to see in our public schools? What is the standard of education we expect for our children? How do we expect that our staff be compensated for the work that they do? The question about fault. We're working within a government system that has been in place, Hamilton County is 200 years old, Mayor?
200 years old, this former government since started in 78.
So we have been tweaking public education in our county for 200 years. What we expect from a teacher now is dramatically different than what we expected from a teacher 50 years ago. What we expect from a kindergartner is dramatically different than what we expected from a kindergartner 50 years ago. And that doesn't mean that that's bad, it means that it's different. And some of that is decisions we can make at a local level, and some of it's decisions that come all the way from the top, from Washington, D.C. So I agree 100% with Commissioner Jeter that citizen participation is critical. I think that as we look at what's next for how we're going to do all of the things in Hamilton County that we want to do with our public education, we've got, I see your 30 seconds, but let me get to the point. We are going to have to make some big changes in Hamilton County to achieve the goals that we in this room have. That, in part, will be affected by this facilities work that we're doing right now. The mayor had a group study the budget for Hamilton County, and they identified that our system needs to be right-sized. We have too many buildings. Too many buildings that we can't take good care of. What buildings need to go? We're going to see long-term savings there, but it's going to require investment on the front end. But we would hope that over time that we would save money that way. I do think ultimately we're going to need to look at how we invest in our schools in Hamilton County. But I don't know, I just implore us all here today, nobody here needs to really point a finger at anybody else, because I think we're all really in support of public education.
So,
I think everyone can hear me fine, right? Yes. I don't know how to turn this off. Don't worry. So, we didn't just find ourselves here magically, right? So, years ago, the people of Hamilton County made a decision to build a lot of small community schools all across Hamilton County. And now we find ourselves in a place, well, we've gotten to this place over the course of the past 20 years where Hamilton County has also decided that they don't want to invest in those schools. It's too expensive to do that. So I think Jenny and Mayor Coppinger both have addressed this in speaking. It's, we need to now have another conversation about how does reducing that capital maintenance expenditure, what does it look like? And how can that help us address budget shortfalls in different areas? But one reality that we have to continue thinking about is that as we address these inefficiencies in our system, which will take years, decades possibly, because it is also very expensive, how do we address the needs in the classrooms for our teachers and the children, our students, all at the same time? And I mean, that's a difficult conversation, I think, for many people, because I think where we end up is it requires dollars. And there's a group of folks in our community who, aren't comfortable settling with that. However, one statistic, I guess, that comes up in different conversations is that over 30% of our population agrees wholeheartedly as they invest thousands of additional dollars into their personal children's education by opting out of the public schools and going to private schools. So, I mean, that's a pretty hard statistic right there. If 30% of our community immediately had rather spend $15,000 to $25,000, $30,000 a year to educate one of their children, how does that translate? How do we translate this conversation of, well, our schools, they're not providing what we need, so I have to spend all this money. Well, how about if we spend just a little more money, all of us, then maybe someone like myself or whomever doesn't feel the need to spend an additional $15,000 to $30,000 annually on that education, because our schools are then adequately staffed and adequately funded for supplies and supports, and in the end, parents and families feel more comfortable, and we're doing our community more of a justice in taking that approach. That's kind of my personal view on it, and I'm happy to discuss it. I never pretend to know all the answers. I certainly have an opinion like everyone in the room. But I think that if you go door to door, talk to your neighbors. That's a good way to start, right? Talk to your neighbors about how they feel. And because there's a lot of information out there that's just, frankly, just not true. And, I think it's important to make sure that we're all discussing the same topic so we can get on the same page and move forward with that conversation.
Thank you, sir. All right, this is for School Board Member Tiffany. I'd like you to take this one if you would. Are you all talking about paying substitutes more? I'm tired of splitting classes on my dedicated planning time.
Still an answer question.
Keith Vogelman, we will bring you up. I'm Tiffany Robinson, I represent District 4, and thank you for asking me that question. First, I want to apologize for being late. I signed up for a parenting seminar months ago. It was important to me, and so now I'm here. But this is also equally important to me, and I'm very proud of our community, and I'm proud of our teachers for standing up for what they believe in and what they want. So if I had a green card, I would be waving it for you right now. So as a board, certainly I know that there's a number of us that believe that substitute teachers deserve more, that they are putting in hard sweat and tears every day in our classrooms the way that our full-time teachers are. I actually wouldn't mind it if Keith was willing to speak on this topic, because there is a lot of work being done by the administration on this topic specifically. One thing, yes?
If I'm not mistaken, Hamilton County has outsourced the subsystem, correct?
Yes.
We don't have any control over that.
That's right, we don't have any control over it, but I will say that the board has the opportunity to create policies that impact subs in a positive way. Specifically, something that's come to my attention as an individual, not necessarily the rest of the board, but it's something that I've talked with Keith about, is the fact that are there opportunities for us to provide more for our subs, like opportunities to be a part of our health plan or our health benefits. So even though, yes, we are subbing it out, there is a place for us to do better by our substitutes, or at least I believe that very strongly. So, but actually, Keith, are you willing and able to speak to this? Okay, Keith.
So I'm Keith Bowman. I'm responsible for human resources at Hamilton County Schools. We are outsourcing subs. So why are we doing that? Well, first of all, when we looked at the last 2 years of our fill rate, running around 80%. So that's just really the problem we're talking about, right? So matter of fact, Friday, 69% fill rate. So what we did is we went out and researched and looked at, is there other solutions? And we've decided to move forward with a firm that will come in and actually be responsible for our subs. A couple of reasons we chose to do that: they average about a 90% fill rate. They're working with about 9 to 10 counties in Tennessee right now. And this month, they'll be on the Shelby County Board of Education agenda for approval there. So we'll make that transition in January, and we really think that as this firm gets up and running, that we'll see improved fill rates. We should start to see improved fill rates. They do this. This is what they do. They do it from a nationwide basis, not only here in Tennessee. So that's kind of the reason we decided to do that. In addition, our subs are going to transition into this new company with a 50 cent increase on their hourly rate.
While Keith, I just didn't want you in front because I couldn't see the timer. One more question for you, since you're up here. It was reported that more than 30 teachers quit in the first quarter of the school year. Why did that happen?
Okay, so that's correct. It was about 32 before fall break. That's a little higher than what we normally see during that period. So what we did is actually went in and did some face-to-face exit interviews. We have an automated exit interview process, but sometimes it takes time for that information to catch up with. So we went in and started looking at all the reasons for resignation. And it ranged anywhere from, we had people who were transferring to jobs in other counties. We had people who had been on leave of absence, maternity leave, and was electing to stay home with their children. We had people whose spouses were transferring, and we had some people who made some decisions about, had come on board as permit or embedded, job embedded, CTE, realized this job wasn't for them. And of course, the narrative that we all hear, there was some people who told us that they were leaving because of behavior issues. So as it's really a wide, broad cross-section. It's not a one specific reason. And as we move forward, one of the things we're doing is trying to build some things in from a human resources standpoint to really look at what we can do to retain teachers. And like I said, face-to-face exit interviews for some of these key positions is something we've got started this last quarter.
I just wanted to make sure that we actually answered the real question. Jenny brought it up that that maybe there are actually other questions around the question that you asked. And so I think your question was specifically, is the board looking at how to pay subs more? Is that correct?
The question was, are we looking at paying subs more so I won't have to spend my time out of my planning period to cover for someone's class?
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that we actually answered the questions that are being asked.
And just a side note, through ESS, the company we're going with, subs can now get benefits, whereas they couldn't before. So that is a plus for them, that they will have benefits.
Not sure who would want to answer this one. I'll just look for volunteers. Can someone address exactly how money is distributed to schools from the county? There seems to be confusion based on statements in local publications. So can someone tell exactly how money from the county is distributed to schools?
No one better to answer that and bring it up. Count.
I made it 45 minutes without having to answer a question. So there are two local revenue streams for education in Hamilton County. So one is local option sales tax. So our sales tax is currently 9.25%. 7% of that is state sales tax that goes to the state. 2.25% is local, and education by law receives half of that. So half of all local option sales tax goes to education. That is similar to an income tax in other states. So the only other local revenue stream we have from Hamilton County government is property tax. And the property tax rate is a set rate that's determined by the county commission. And a certain percentage of that rate goes to general government, and a certain percentage of that rate goes to a road fund, and the other portion goes to education. So those are the local revenue streams for education in Hamilton County. I'll just go ahead and say this while I'm up here. Other counties have additional revenue streams. One is a will tax that Commissioner Sharp had proposed to put on referendum and let the people of Hamilton County vote for. So that's an option. Other counties in Tennessee have impact fees. Impact fees are charged to developers when they build, so that funds can go into school building. And then local option sales tax could be increased another 0.5%. The maximum allowed by law is 9.75, which would be 2.75 local, and other counties have increased from 2.25 to 2.75. So those are other options that are out there. I can't think of any others off the top of my head that would be available for local funding.
Does anyone else feel, better be careful standing up here, does anyone else feel the central office?
Can you answer the question? How does it go to a school?
Yeah.
How do the schools get money from that?
You mean the individual schools, not the Department of Education as a whole? So schools get, so teachers are paid through central office, not through schools. So that a majority of funding, over 80% of our funding goes to paying teachers and all the other employees. salaries and benefits. That's all through central office. Schools' primary source of funds is through student activity funds. In the past, there have been school fees charged to families, and we reduced that this year and replaced it with an allocation to schools. So we have an allocation of funds to schools on a per pupil basis based on enrollment in that school. That started this year, and we sent $3.1 million to schools for everyday operating expenses. And last year, I think we sent $950,000. So that increased by over $2 million. Otherwise, there's really not other school level expenses other than what runs through student activity funds. The teachers and principal and assistant principals, school secretaries, instructional coaches, librarians, PE teachers, music teachers, those are all paid through central office payroll. Now, we do have a staffing model that we put in place this year to more fairly allocate positions to schools. And we're implementing that over a 3-year period so that it's transparent and fair to everyone. So we had lots of conversation with principals this year about the staffing model, what it looks like for each individual school, and we held schools harmless for the most part. If it said they had too many positions based on the number of students, for example, we didn't say you have to get rid of all these positions. But we have had those conversations to where we need to right size those because we have some schools that have too little staff, and we have some schools that have too much staff based on the model, which is driven by enrollment, the size of the school, economic disadvantage, and those types of things. So that is something that we are implementing over multiple years, and it will create transparency for how positions are allocated to the schools in a way that didn't exist in the past.
Does anyone feel the central office is heavier in salary than what is spread out through the schools? We have secretaries making more than teachers. Who wants that? Is that true? Do we have?
I want you to take a question.
Talk about timing. Would you like to hear it again? Would you like to hear the question again? Gotta stand up.
Gotta stand up. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good. Glad to be here. And apologize for being late. Got called on the interstate coming out of Nashville. So you asked the question about central office being heavier than schools. So a few data points I'd give. I think it's important to bring context to how we're staffed at the district office. First of all, I'd say this, that I've been a teacher, a principal, assistant principal, on and on and on through the school district. So have a strong sensitivity to what transpires in classrooms, what transpires in regards to the day-to-day. And our job as a district office is to make sure that we are doing everything we can to get resources to the classroom. I think you can ask our team, and in particular, Sandy Lohman, who is my assistant. I'm rarely in the office, and we try to keep it that way. That's our goal, is to support you all. So when I start to look at our central office staffing, our central office, so to speak, staffing, our district staffing makes up about 3.5 cents of every dollar. And so to give some context to that 3.5 cents of every dollar, I would point you to other systems that look similar to us. And so the systems with 35,000 students or above, we are next to last in administrative per pupil expenditure for administrative staff. And so coming from another system and coming into this district and looking at a central office, so to speak, in comparison to the rest of the system, there was more central office support where I came from than it is here. Now, with that being said, we don't have a desire to continue to create central office roles and such. When you look at our budget, what we did this past budget cycle, you'll see that the vast majority of the resources went directly to schools, and in the way particularly of social emotional supports, because we heard that a lot. You know, we build a budget, what we try to do is we try to go out and listen to what you all are saying, what the community is saying, etc., in the building and the construction of the budget. So when you look at from that context, I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of times what transpires is it's an easy narrative to jump to. It's an easy narrative to jump to. And frankly speaking, I'm being very frank and transparent, it creates division in the focus. The reason why I'm here, and I'll be very candid, I'm supposed to be a Leadership Tennessee today, and I don't want any accolade whatsoever for canceling that and being here, but I'm here simply because this school system is doing some great things. You all are doing some great things in the classroom. I was at Appleton on, anybody from Appleton? Yeah, I saw y'all Friday. I was at Appleton at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, and I know everybody's working hard on a Friday, but I was at Appleton, and I'm not suggesting that anybody's not working hard on a Friday, but I was at Appleton at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, and I saw some of the best teaching I've seen. And so I see that across our system, and I see that with the work that's transpired. And so I don't think that's the case at all, David. Now, when you start peeling apart this, person X make more than person Y at the district office, I don't know, because we don't look at it in that way per se. It's very similar to a teacher. And you have a salary schedule, and as you move and matriculate through that salary schedule, your salary will increase. And so that may be, if you pick off an individual employee here or there, that very well may be the case. But when you look across our system, and particularly when you look in comparison to other systems that look similar to us, you'll see that we are next to last in per pupil expenditure for administrative costs.
Thank you, sir. And before you got here, we established a 2-minute limit for answers. Just so you know.
No comment.
Why were permanent substitutes taken from our buildings?
So I think I'm just here to answer all the questions. I should have stayed. Permanent subs were not necessarily taken from your buildings. So who's had, I'm just gonna ask questions, this is good. Who's had to cover, because you haven't had a sub in your building, who's had to cover a class? So great, y'all got all kind of protocols. This is great. A teacher put this together. Y'all got all kind of protocols. I love it. And so we know that's the case. Our sub fill rate is about 80%. That's what Keith, that's what our HR team runs, about 80%. Sub field. Now, here's what happens. You all know I'm very frank and transparent. That rate runs lower in some buildings in comparison to others, right? So some buildings you got a 90% staff rate, and some buildings you got a 50% staff rate, and that double cards, right? And that creates more complexity and more strain. And here's what happens. In a diverse school system like we are, and we are. 30 seconds. Diverse school system like we are, because we are a very diverse school system. A lot of times in our schools with heavier economically disadvantaged students, you have a tougher time getting subs to fill those schools. So I'm just being very candid. And so what Keith did, and Keith could give a lot of context to this. Keith came from a nuclear entity where they looked at outsourcing some of these kind of one-off things, and so we did look at a staffing support that runs at about 90% or above. And so we feel strongly that increase in sub presence will be helpful. The other last thing I'll say, 5 seconds, is that we are in a situation where the economy is really good. And because the economy is good, subs and bus drivers, all those areas are much tougher for us to staff. And so it's not about move a permanent sub, it is about making sure that we do a better job of making sure that you're not having to cover on planning periods and on breaks, et cetera, of other classes.
All right, you get a break here. This is for the commission. Why does the county commission meet when we teachers cannot attend the meetings?
I don't think I need this. I'll just say, I've been on the commission for a little over a year now, and that's how it's always been. My colleague, Commissioner Teeter, proposed a resolution not long ago, and I think that we can do this. We can have meetings at different times, and I think that's become part of the conversation is, maybe when we have very important meetings that that certain segments of our population are affected tremendously, maybe we should change those meeting dates to a time when those most affected can assuredly be there in strong numbers. And I applaud my colleague, Commissioner Jeter, for bringing that to the commission, and I think it's something that we should be able to do moving forward. One unique thing, or I don't know if it's unique, maybe it's not unique, but one thing that I've become to realize here, right, it seems pretty simple, I guess, but in order to do anything on the county commission in Hamilton County, you gotta have 5 votes. And if you can't count to 5, then we can't do it. If there are individuals in the room who, feel so compelled to speak to their representatives, which if I represent you, and you're all from Hamilton County, right? So I try to represent all of you to the best of my ability. But if you're in District 6 particularly, I want you to talk to me. So send me emails, call me on my phone, send me a letter. And if there's something that's going on that you want to be a part of, that you're not able to be a part of, then let's figure out a way that we can try to make that happen, right? I don't know, that's my answer.
Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of piggyback off what Commissioner Sharp said, since it was my resolution that I brought forth. I'm just going to be frank. I think, during the discussion when I brought forth the resolution, one of the things that still haunts me to this day that I heard was, why fix something that's not broken? So, I mean, that kind of tells whoever asked that question, that kind of tells you why we still meet on Wednesdays at 9:30, is that, some of us don't feel like it's a problem. So I think, again, this is why we're doing this today, because this is part of the solution. Your voice is what is key to this. You represent, just because we are your commissioners and we do represent you and sit up there to make the decisions, but ultimately we've got to hear from you. And I'll say this, to piggyback what off Commissioner Sharp says, even though I represent District 5 and proudly represent District 5, I want to hear from everyone. I want to hear if you're District 1 through District 9, because to me, the more that I hear across the county on what matters, then as I'm sitting up there making decisions and making a vote, as I'm representing my district, I know what's going on throughout Hamilton County. And that helps in making those decisions and making sure that we get to that 5. So if this is something that's important, I saw a lot of green cards go up, let us know. Contact all 9 commissioners and let us know how important this is and why this needs to be changed so that we can see your faces. I would love it. It bothers me that on Wednesdays mornings that those seats are empty. So I would love to see a room like this on Wednesdays or whenever we meet where our people that we do represent are in the building. Thank you.
I see 2 questions on a topic I have not heard of before right now, so I'm going to put it out there because somebody put it over here. What is the plan if teachers go on strike before Christmas due to current wages? We are required to spend money for degrees and certifications, but it doesn't add up. Are y'all going on strike?
Don't strike, please. Yeah. So that's so you can look across the country, and this is a conversation. I think Chicago just figured it out in the last couple of weeks where teachers went on strike. Understanding the state of Tennessee, it is a little bit different. So you don't necessarily have the ability to go on strike from that context. With all that being said, we're very sensitive. I think everybody is. I know Mary is commissioned to how important teachers are just in general. So I think the question was, do we have a plan? We absolutely do not have a plan. And frankly speaking, we don't want to have to devise a plan. Obviously, if we don't have teachers in the classroom, school is impacted and we'd have to deal with, you know, the operation of school in that way. You wouldn't be able to have school without teachers, right? And so that's just the reality. And so obviously we'd have to deal and address that as it came forward. But understanding the state of Tennessee is different than what you might see across the country in regards to the law, and the ability to strike does not exist here in our state. So.
We have about a half hour left, so we're going to try to get as many questions as we can. And this is open for anybody. The topic of a raise for teachers was a very frequent topic this year. For 2020, what do you see as a fair percentage raise for teachers? For the next budget, what is a fair percentage raise for teachers? School board?
10. Well, I think that for those of us that are here from the board, you know, we certainly support, all of us supported a 5% increase for you this year in 2019. I think that we would all like to see that happen in 2020, although I do know that, you know, we have all talked about what could it look like if it was higher than 5%. But I mean, at the end of the day, right now, we're currently still battling the question of how do we make that happen for you. So, you know, I think that it's hard to answer that question except tell you what it is that we as individuals would like to see for you, which is certainly an increase. We'd like to see what we proposed already for 2019 actually come to fruition. But then of course, we also very much know that what you deserve is beyond 5%. So it's a question of how do we actually get there. So I know that I'm not providing with an answer of how we get there, but I am telling you more of what I think, at least for the four of us, what we would like to see happen for you. Does anybody else want to take that?
I think the only thing I'd add is that obviously we'll go through conferencing, and so as we start the budget process, and we have a great relationship with Janetto Markel, who's flashing 10% over there in the corner in our association. So we'll go through collaborative conferencing, which by law we have to do, and had a great collaborative conference season this past year, and we'll go through that process again. And I think anybody that was on that team will tell you that we brought things to the table that weren't even necessarily asked, that, you know, maybe even folks weren't thinking about necessarily. Like, for instance, the insurance policy, we went from 20,000 of coverage to 40,000 of coverage. We heard a lot and are hearing a lot from teachers around dental coverage. And so we, I'm gonna say fringe benefits, what team was that? The benefits team committee,
yeah.
insurance committee, went and researched that, really came to find out that our reimbursement offers teachers a better benefit than does a traditional dental coverage. But we talked about the fact that so many teachers, so I'll give a real life, for instance, I just had to have a root canal because I'm not doing a good job of brushing, and it's $1,000, right? And you gotta pay it, and then it takes a few weeks to get it processed. And so we're very sensitive to the fact that, you know, if I'm making $40,000 a year, and my gosh, some of our classified employees that are making $30,000, $25,000 a year, that's a heavy, heavy hit. It was a heavy hit on me, and so we will be looking at providing the options so that you can choose. So things like that, in addition to obviously the bottom line salary, that we'll continue to look at from the standpoint of the day-to-day and the salary package, so to speak, for teachers.
The district is losing great teachers to higher paying jobs. What is your plan when the school district doesn't have enough teachers due to the current wages? They asked, but I just read it.
Let's be really clear here. The board, the administration, that's already a problem. I mean, you know that, yes?
Yes.
That is the problem that we are all equally trying to solve. You're trying to solve that problem. We're trying to solve that problem. And once again, just like I don't know the answer as to what type of pay increase we can put in place for you next year, it's the question of how do we get there? I mean, you know, we talk almost every single board meeting about the fact that we lose teachers every year, you know, even every semester, to schools in Georgia, Knoxville, Cleveland, Bradley County. I mean, it's very alive, very real. And then, you know, even just beyond pay, there's things that you don't have the ability to do as a teacher that you should be able to do. Like, as a new mom, I can't imagine teaching all day long if I'm a new mother and I don't have the ability to step away from my classroom to pump. I mean, let's just be real here. Like, how many are moms in here? How many of you ever, how many of you had a baby and you had to go back to work after 6 weeks of maternity leave, which is not cool. You're not mentally ready, and physically your body's not ready. So, I mean, there are so many things that we're talking about. How can we do better by our teachers to prevent you leaving our schools? I mean, if there's just one thing we're trying to accomplish, it's the question that David just asked right there. It's how do we prevent you from leaving our schools and feeling like it's the best place for you to be?
We have a lot of balls that we have to keep in the air all at one time. The county commission has to do that too. So when it's really, really hard to be a school board member and to know that we need to show our teachers how much they're valued. We need to improve our third grade reading scores. We need to make sure our buildings are not falling down. So what we tried to do this year with the budget was make progress on each of those elements, investing in our schools to reduce fees so that our schools had more money for daily operations, to increase our supports for social emotional, to increase our supports for early reading intervention, and to also offer additional bonus pay for teachers and improve the step scale. So it's definitely something that we're trying to make progress on a lot of things all at one time, and keeping it balanced with our strategic plan overall that has, 5 main elements to it, in a way that, Mayor Coppinger and David and Catherine will have to look at the sewer and the sheriff and the schools. We've got a lot of things.
Mayor Coppinger, I'd like you to take this one. Why isn't the Hamilton County School Board allowed or able to levy taxes themselves? This does happen in some counties.
Well, it does happen in some counties, but again, the state is the one that sets that parameter as to whether or not, and they're not willing to do that. I mean, the only people that have the taxing authority is, the commission to set the tax, and it's just that's just not what you can do here in Hamilton County. But I want to say something, because listening to all these other discussions, I think it's really important that I want to say before we depart. This is what I hear time and time again, and obviously it's really apparent where I was on this issue, because I thought it was really important. There's a number of things in that budget I thought were important. Teachers' pay was certainly, one of the major priorities. But here's what we got to do as a county and as a communities, and this is where you really can play a big part. What we hear time and time again, and I've been hearing this for 30 years, is that we can't trust the system. We can't trust them to spend the money the way it's supposed to be spent, whatever that means. So we hear that time and time again, and again, I try to figure out, and I've talked to many other elected people, who is them that we don't trust? I mean, but it's just a really common issue, whether I'm at the grocery store or wherever, people come up and say, I agree with you. We got to fix education here in Hamilton County, but I don't think we can trust to give more money in taxes or whatever that source may be. So, what the challenge is, there's 2 things people like to say. One is you can't trust them with the money. The second thing is there's too many people in central office. And I think when we did, put together a working group that had nothing to do with the school system, and all I asked them to do was not to look at policy, just look at the financial piece. And they came back, and what they said to us was exactly what we had suspected for a long time. There was not a problem at the central office with overstaffing, and some of you may disagree with that. But we got to be able to show the public, what each one of these individuals do, and this is why it's not overcrowded. But more importantly, we got to be able to show the public, for the public to be on the side of helping with public education, that no one's wasting the money. And that's what's really been frustrating to me. Because, I've sat in this position now for 9 years, And I watch it, you know, year after year, and I watch the school board, you know, as a labor of love, because who would want to serve on the school board? Honestly, not me. And I say that because they're responsible to send the budget over to county general government, which becomes part of our budget, and it's up to myself and my staff. We present that budget as part of the entire budget. And I don't know if everybody really understands that. And then that's when it's decided by the commission which piece of that budget is going to pass. But it goes back to the same thing that I want to emphasize again, is that I don't know why over the last 3 decades I know of that I've been around and involved in government, that people keep saying to me, you can't trust them to spend the money where they say they're going to spend it. And I don't understand that. And, you know, one of the other things is, and if you'll allow me, Dave, I'd like for Brent to answer this publicly, because it's a really, you know, some misinformation gets out there. And that's what we have to overcome, is a lot of misinformation.
We are the they you're talking about.
That they, I know, I mean, it should.
We are the they.
That they don't trust. Well, but they don't know you, or they don't know, it's just easy to say. Right. I would agree with you. We're on the same side here. But I'm just saying, we're on the same side. I'm just saying that's the obstacle that's hard to overcome. And, you know, recently, and the school system is no different than county general government, when right after that budget was passed, then there was additional money that because you weren't able to fill all the positions, you came back and you said, you know, wow, we got ever X million more dollars than what we thought we had. People immediately start saying, well, see, I told you, you can't trust them. It was there all along. Well, you know, that happens in county general government as well. It happens throughout this entire state, because you can't budget a budget to come within $5 if you're dealing with over a $750 million budget that we do in county, or over a $450 million which are the school system. So there's always going to be some money that comes back in, right? I'm sorry?
Did board members get a raise with the tax?
That I don't know.
With the new budget.
Did you get?
Oh, they're not supposed to be shouting out.
Yes, we did get everybody got a raise with the tax increase, and as David, Commissioner Sharp did, he gave his raise to the scholarship fund, and board members, Tucker, Jenny, Robinson, and myself also gave our raises to the scholarship fund, just as.
You can't prevent that, by the way. You can't prevent it, because all of the commission, even the city of Chattanooga's mayor and their city council, all the commissioners and all the board members, their salaries years and years ago got tied into a percentage of whatever the county mayor's salary is. So they had a raise, and they gave that money up for, you know, to do that. But yes, I mean, there are some things, some mechanisms that are in place that just have to happen as a result of their law, and that's what happened. So yes, they did. Right.
Did you want to add anything?
You said you cannot have school tax in the city.
It'd have to be changed in the General Assembly for Hamilton County to do that.
If it's all right, I'd just like to say something about trust. You pointed out that every day parents choose to send their children to school because they trust the teachers and the principals in their buildings. There's been chatter about a poll that was taken that was about the budget, the original budget that would have requested $34 million additional. And one of the things I haven't seen talked about a lot is the reality is that people trust their child's teacher very highly. People trust their school's principal very highly. The disconnect comes when we move outside of the people that we know and into systems and bureaucracies that exist within government. And so it's why a meeting like this is a really beautiful thing, because you all, as teachers, are implicitly trusted because you have earned that trust from the families in your buildings. And if you all find issues that are important to you and you choose to work together and talk to the parents in your buildings about them, that is going to affect positive change for public education across our county.
We have about 10 minutes left, and we'll try to get into many questions. And again, this is one of those gorilla, perhaps not in the room here. The question is, how can the board, school board, and the commission work together to support the schools and the teachers? It's going to be hard to answer because we have 7 empty chairs over there and several empty chairs over here. But that's the kind of the crux of the issue. There's a lot of concern in this room that your side doesn't work well with your side. How do we fix that?
I'll take a shot at it. I've got one answer. It's a big question, right? And who knows this? This conversation has been going for 20 years. Right? How do we work, or longer? How do we work together? I don't know. We haven't been able to do it for 20 years. But I would say the first thing to do is you take politics out of the conversation altogether. And you talk to business owners, and you talk to families in your community, and learn from them what it is they want for their families and what they want for their businesses and how well it's being satisfied in our community. And go from there. Make it a human issue and not a political issue. There's so much grandstanding that goes on in our communities. And, I mean, it's not productive, obviously. It's been going on for over 20 years. So let's have a human conversation about it. And, you know, my hope is that we could do that today. But, and I think we've done a pretty good job of it with what we have. Yeah, let's continue doing this. Make your voices heard. Talk with your neighbors. Talk with your friends. Talk with your coworkers.
And
Well, right. But, you know, I wasn't going to say that, right? I mean, I'm trying to say let's not be political about it. Let's just be realistic about it. Let's be realistic.
When 7 people aren't here that need to hear this.
Thank you for the question, right? So, I guess the sore thumb, right? So, yeah, that makes sense. Right? And so maybe we do this again. Yeah. And then maybe we do it again. Right. And then maybe do it again. And how often do you need to do this? Right? I mean, you can only not come to a meeting so many times. We're eventually going to have to have a conversation.
I would say this just as a tidbit in transparency. There's one thing that we go back and we talk about, having gone through the budget cycle this past budget season. So I hope you all know we advocated like heck to try to get the budget passed. In fact, so much so that you can turn to a news outlet probably every day and see something that's not so kind about yours truly. But it's the right thing to do for kids, and so keep writing about me. I appreciate it. I will say this, if there's something that we didn't do as well as we should have, it would have been making sure that you all really understand the process. And so because Tennessee is different, and because it has to get approved by the board, but ultimately the commission approves it, I think what happened when I go back and do the Monday morning quarterback is that we went through the budget, we presented it, it was approved by our board 7-2. Everybody went to summer break feeling good about a 5% raise, and I think we missed the moment because it still has to get approved at the commission level. And I think what Commissioner Sharp said is really important, what the mayor said earlier, like really engaging your county officials around their tough task of making decisions that are there. So as I say, that's something that we want to get better at. When I think about being a teacher, I didn't pay attention to the budget. As a principal, I didn't really pay attention to the budget. Now I pay a lot of attention to the budget, but we got to make sure that you understand the process and how the approval cycle goes here locally so that you can engage, because ultimately we need your voice because you are trusted, and that's just the reality.
Okay, we didn't hear from any school board members on this, and the question was, how are you going to work with commissioners? You guys have got to work together, according to the question.
By doing this, by using your voice, by coming together. This is awesome, this is great. Don't stop. I know this is difficult. I didn't want to come today, but I'm going to be honest with you. My uncle turned 90 years old. My mother's 93. My aunt from Nashville was here. This was hard to be here today, but you know what? You are worth it. The teachers in Hamilton County are worth it. The children are worth it. That's why I'm here today. I want to fight for you all. The children are worth it. Come again. Bring more people. Bring more teachers. Every district in Hamilton County should be here. All of the teachers. Let's get a bigger room next time. Let's get more commissioners here. Let's have all the school board members here. Let's do it step by step. It's going to take a while, but let your voices be heard. I agree with you, Dr. Johnson. We didn't get through the process. It was that budget. That's the hardest thing we've ever done. That was hard. But you know what? We have a strategic plan, and this man right here, he's following the strategic plan. Every single school board meeting that we have, he starts off with the strategic plan, and you know what? We're sticking to it, and it's working. And you know what? We're doing it for you guys. We're doing it for the teachers, and we're doing it for the students. And I think we're seeing progress. So let's keep doing it.
Thank you. Let me apologize because I know I'm not going to get everybody's question in because I keep losing my place on the screen here, but I'm doing the best I can. This may be the last one, I'm not sure. And I think this is an interesting one. The Chamber of Commerce supported the budget. The teachers supported the budget. The realtors supported the budget. School board members supported the budget. You all keep talking about that they didn't. Who is this they you're talking about besides 5 commissioners? I guess from what I gathered, the question is, are there other forces in the community besides the 5 commissioners who need to be identified?
Who are the 5 commissioners?
Shouldn't, but I will. I don't think the realtors did. It was the Home Builders Association that did. I'm trying to step away so I don't get feedback. And again, after tonight, we really need to move forward. And Dr. Johnson and I are having a joint board meeting with the 2 boards, the Commission and the School Board, on the 9th of December. To talk about moving forward. And that's what we really need to do. And it's good to talk about some of the things we have. But what was important, and what I hear in my job a lot, wouldn't it be nice to be if Hamilton County, the school system was so good in Hamilton County, and this is why the home builders came out almost immediately. And they said to me, the home builders did, we really want to see this because what's happening, we got certain areas that people perceive the schools to be a whole lot better. So everybody wants to move there, it drives the property values up there. Home builders are having to pay more, right? People that are moving in, they're all moving there, and all the infrastructure is having to go in those areas. And then all of a sudden now we have people saying, well, we're growing too fast, so I don't want any more growth. Well, that's a real dangerous place to be in this county, is when you quit growing. I say that because, going forward, the home builders and these people, the chambers and these people, they're going to continue to support a good public education. And that's because they know the importance of it in terms of, so people aren't just interested in living in 1 or 2 or 3 different places in this county. And, when you sit where most of us do to try to make a difference, you get up every day, and I've always said to people, if you're just going to go in there and sit and do nothing and you get reelected, these people are all good politicians. They know how to get elected, right? But the day after you get elected, you got to go govern. You can't keep trying to run for re-election because nothing can get done. I mean, so the real challenge that we have ahead of us in this county, and this is something all of us have to work on, and particularly ones of you that put us in these offices, is that to make certain that we are moving it forward. And you know what, if you make a decision, there's a lot worse things, and we all know people in a lot worse situations than not getting reelected, right? I mean, I certainly know people that would rather have their health or whatever. And I say that with all sincerity because, those are the 2 things I came here today that I thought were really important to stress. One is that, and it's not like Ms. Hill pointed out, she's so great, it's not the teachers that they don't trust or principals or whatever. They don't trust once they hand the money over that the ones of us that, are responsible for that, they don't, and it doesn't matter who they are, they just don't trust that it's going to be spent where they want it to be spent or perceive it that way. And the other thing is, you know, we as elected people, and it's been mentioned up here a couple of times, I've heard both commissioners mention it, you represent the entire county. You know, you can't just do what's popular in certain areas, or we're not going to get out of this. And we are in a hole. I mean, we're in a hole with deferred maintenance. We're in a hole with you know, some of the things that I read about that was really near and dear to me that was in there. I mean, the K through 3 literacy, the post-secondary education. You know, all of these things that we need to do a better job. We need to give our young people a better job. You know what? People will want to come back to the public school system if we can make this, you know, something that, and that's why these groups got out and supported. They want us, and they're challenging myself and Dr. Johnson and these elected officials to make it better so that we don't drive property values up in just one area of this county. And that's what's happening. And I think all of you realize that too. That's where all the overcrowdedness is. That's where we're having to build additional schools. We can't build them fast enough. Don't have the funds to do that. But again, I mean, that's just my roundabout way to say, you know, when we do leave today, you know, to keep focusing on that. Do I? Well, I don't think. I don't think any of us are in favor of busing. You know,
All right. We started about 5 minutes late, so I'm going to go about 5 minutes. We're going to call it a day. I did get a question asking where is Commissioner Greg Martin, and I was supposed to tell you he wanted to be here. He was working the Hickson Kiwanis lunch at Hickson High School today, and he's in charge of cleaning up. And Chip Baker also sent word that he's in New York with his son, I believe, so that's why he's not here. All right. Okay, well, I'm just telling you what he told me. You all can take it up with him. We're doing that right now. Okay, 2 more questions. 2 more questions, we're done. What would Dr. Johnson and other officials say to teachers who are afraid to speak out because they fear retribution from their building principals?
Well, you're speaking now, and keep speaking. I think, you know, I've walked into that, and culturally that's a challenge. I think it's years and years and years of maybe cultural feelings that exist or have existed. We want to hear from you. I started about 3 weeks ago, I guess, some superintendent sit-downs where I'm probably been in several of your buildings, I'm just going, sitting, talking to teachers and principal in the room and I. We need to hear from you all as far as setting our direction, because here's what we understand, and I tell team this all the time, like the higher you go up, so to speak, really, the less you know. You know, and you're not very smart. And so I get up every morning realizing I'm not very smart. And if I'm going to be effective, and I mean that with sincerity, if I'm going to be effective for this school system and serving in this capacity, I've got to have the experts that are in the trenches so that I can have that information back so that we can respond. And so continue to speak, continue to let us know what's important to you. We want to hear your feedback candidly. We want to hear it formally in these settings. We want to hear it informally. We want you to know our doors are always open. We're coming to you, and we want to hear. So continue that. I mean, this is, and I say that we needed this 3 or 4 months ago. You know, we did. We were in the midst of the budget. We needed these types of conversations, robust conversations, and they can speak to it 3 or 4 months ago around what was really important to you all. We need it continued going forward. So continue to speak, and we'll have conversations with our school leaders about, you know, hey, what culture are you setting? And so we will continue to do that.
We have, Dr. Johnson's team has started teacher advisory panels and also parent advisory panels, and they happen within each learning community. I find as a school board member that is some of the single most important meetings that I can go to in a given month. And I've noticed within those meetings that there has been conversation about, ooh, I don't want to say this and get in trouble or get somebody else in trouble. And I've made it very clear in our meetings, that's the kind of feedback that we need to make the system better. Occasionally, school board members will receive a anonymous letter. Anonymous letters do not work. We need to know what building are we talking about? What subject matter, what's the curriculum issue that we're really facing? Anonymous letters to the editor, just general outrage, is kind of a commonality in our culture right now. As a nation, let's be constructive. Give us that constructive feedback. That's not something that we always want. It's hard to hear constructive feedback, but that's how we all get better. And I can tell you this, last year, we were dealing with issues that were big and gnarly. We were dealing with benchmarks coming out, and at those teacher advisories, we were talking through those, and it's a big fat nightmare. Well, you know what, y'all? This year, we're talking about something different because the benchmark got better. And you know what else got better? All of our student scores got better because the work you all put in paid off. Dr. Johnson in Nashville on Thursday presented to the Tennessee School Board Association, and they were in awe of what you all have accomplished in the space of a year. Everybody around the state of Tennessee is saying, what is happening in Hamilton County? So there are great things happening, and for us to have conversations like this about, we need to pay our people better. How are we gonna make that happen? These are the conversations that are gonna move us forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Final question. And this is the reason, best I can tell, the major reason that most of you are here and the reason the meeting was held today. What is the timeline? Give us a timeline for an action plan to give teachers a raise. Teachers just want an actual promise of a plan that will be fulfilled in the future. A timeline. When's it gonna happen?
We'll go through budget season. It just ended. We'll start it again. You can tell how excited I am about it. Well, we had a long budget season this year because we just pushed and challenged the status quo in regards to how the budget's been developed. Brent came in, we budgeted around priorities, so we budgeted around strategic focus. The process will start in about 30 days. We're already having conversations about it. When we start second semester, we'll go out and have our formal community sessions. We are having many informal conversations with teachers, so understanding, for instance, I'll give for instance, so you know, I was at Calvin Donaldson today, and I heard two things that are curricular focused for teachers. I heard, our CKLA implementation is going really, really well, and then I also heard we want clear curriculum in elementary for math. And so I heard that, and so I said, Justin, what are we doing? And so, those are the kinds of conversations that we'll take in. We'll present a budget that always prioritizes teachers, it prioritizes compensation as a whole, continue to look at benefit structure and such. Ultimately, that budget will go to the county commission, and we work with the mayor. The mayor and I have a great relationship, and we talk once, twice a week about a myriad of things. Obviously, we'll be talking more about budget here in the next few weeks, and so we'll have conversations with commissioners as well. As far as specifics around timelines, I really have to defer to the commission in regards to, so our budget approval date is by June. Do we have to have a budget in place by?
Schoolboard probably have approval by April.
Yeah. And we'll put all that out, so you'll have all the dates of budget sessions at the school system level, similar to what we did last year with the timeline. The thing we'll be really even clearer about this year is when it goes from the school system over to county commission for consideration. We want you to know those dates and times going forward. So, we presented, I just keep on saying, and we do have to move forward with conversation, but we presented a 5% raise this year. And we see that as a priority going forward. If you ask me today to put a percentage on what we have for teachers, very transparent, I'm not going to stand there and tell you it's going to be 10%. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be 5%, I'm going to tell you it's going to be 7%. I'm going to tell you we're going to absolutely always do our best to make sure that we're resourcing you at the school level.
Thanks, everybody. Quick note. Kendra, is there anything you'd like to add?
Please stay engaged.
Okay, and that's really what I want to say at the end. I accepted this invitation under some criticism from some for one reason. I think people ought to talk out loud. And that hasn't been happening a whole lot. So I'm glad your voices are heard. I'm all for opposing voices too. Every voice needs to be heard. And y'all need to do this again. And I guarantee you, when you walk out here this evening, some of you are going to say, my question didn't get asked, my problem didn't get solved. I know that. They all know that. It's true. That's why you need to do it again. That's why you just need to keep doing this and keep speaking up. Kendra?
I just really want to thank everybody for coming out. I think my fear walking in was that no one was going to show up. I was like, so this kind of turnout is very encouraging. My biggest fear walking out the door today is that we disengage. And if you are a teacher in this room, you literally, not misusing that word, you literally cannot afford to disengage. Our schools and our children, our communities cannot afford for us to disengage. The time is right now for you to stand up and use the loudest voice you have to say, enough is enough is enough. When we have this many empty seats, now some people have legitimate reasons. There are a couple with legitimate reasons. Reach out and ask them why they weren't here and see if you think that the rest of the reasons were legitimate. Okay? Hold them accountable. And let's move forward. And thank you so much. Thank you for coming.